If you like Obamacare, you can keep it. Apparently, that is the Republican message. If you like Obamacare, you can keep it. Raise your hand if you want to keep Obamacare. Exactly. Nobody outside of Washington who's a Republican wants to keep it. What happened to these people? I heard them all the time. We're going to repeal it, root and branch. That sounds like all of it and then some. And yet when we got up here, we decided to vote on a partial repeal. We lost like 8 people who voted for it a year ago. Then we started getting skinnier and skinnier, and we voted on the skinny repeal. What percentage of Obamacare were we going to repeal? Maybe 20%. And we lost people on that. Some people said it was too much, the first repeal. Then they said it was too little, the next repeal. It amazes me how people with a straight face, and one Republican alternative plan said, literally, put forward by Republicans, if you like Obamacare, you can keep it. There's still one of those floating around. I just don't understand the disconnect. My father used to call it Potomac fever. People come up here and they get some sort of addiction to power, and it sort of corrupts their brain. In fact, it was, I think, Lincoln who said, if you want to challenge a man and test a man with adversity, give them power. You know, I think that's really the problem up here, is we have so many people that succumb to it, they forget where they came from. They forget what they said on the campaign trail. Now, some people say, in order to get ahead, what we need to do is just hold hands and sing Kumbaya, and everybody just needs to be nicer. We're not nice enough to each other, everybody says up here. And occasionally that may be true. They were shooting at me at the baseball game, so some of them are not playing nice. But the thing is if we're looking to how we get along, do we have to all believe the same thing? Can you believe things strongly and still have public discourse about it? Was it always this way? People say, you know how your parents, or maybe your grandparents, my parents would say, you remember the 1950s, everything was perfect, you know? And nobody was angry and everybody lived as this idyllic, peaceful world, and nobody was ever angry with each other. So they say in politics, oh yeah, everybody used to get along. It's incivility that is our problem. And it's like, have these people not read any of our history? Thomas Jefferson and John Adams were at each other's throat. They were accusing each other of having children out of wedlock. Andrew Jackson just finished a book about him, and they were talking about him being a bigamist and being married to a woman before she was divorced. We've had a lot of acrimony. From my state, there was a guy named Henry Clay, probably one of the most famous senators over there. When he first came up, though, he was elected to the House. This is like 1810. He gets elected, and he becomes Speaker in his first term. It's like, you know, many times these people have been up here 20, 30, 40 years until they get to be Speaker. He was elected his first term, only one ever to be elected. But it was kind of a raucous place. There were dogs on the floor. There were people, the Derringer had just been invented. It was a sliding pistol. You could have one that slid down your arm just in case, you know, people got out of hand on the House of Representatives on the floor. But anyway, there was this guy named John Randolph of Roanoke, and he had 2 big dogs. And these aren't like Labradoodles, okay? Think Game of Thrones hounds, all right? So he has these hounds on the floor, and the Speaker before Henry Clay had said, we're gonna get those dogs off there. And a guy from North Carolina, a congressman, came up to John Randolph of Roanoke and said, you need to get those dogs out of here. And John Randolph of Roanoke picked his cane up and proceeded to cane him over the head until he decided, well, it's best not to mess with John Randolph. So Henry Clay gets elected, and Henry Clay says to the Sergeant of Arms, get those damn dogs off the floor. And so the Sergeant of Arms was armed. He went over, made him take the dogs out. And so John Randolph of Roanoke was none too happy with Henry Clay. Henry Clay comes out of the doors, the same doors, same house of war, comes out of the doors, and John Randolph of Roanoke bows up and he says, I never sidestep a skunk. And Henry Clay said, I always do. And walked on past him. Things were not really ever, you know, completely without acrimony. But the moral of the story, if there's a moral, we have to get to a moral. The moral of the story isn't that we should carry guns or be so unhappy that we're shooting at each other on the House floor. We don't want that. But do we want the opposite, that we have to just sing Kumbaya and not voice what we truly believe in? Are there things that truly are important enough that you should stand your ground on? I think there are, and there have been times in our history when we do. If people ask you who is a hero